So I was interested in one comment you made about kind of conscious and non-conscious processes and how the kind of the functional aspect of your proposal is more or less non-conscious, whereas there's a kind of a conscious component, which is like our everyday lived experience, which is not kind of going to be able to introspect upon this functional system. So I was wondering, more on a philosophical note, how exactly we're supposed to think about phenomenal experience and kind of conscious experience in terms of its relationship to functional relationships, like your, specifically your linguistic proposal, but then also the other domain-specific proposals like perception. There are those who don't believe that perception is modular or domain-specific, that it's embodied or something to that effect. So I wonder if you had any proposed reflections on this kind of research now and how this relates to kind of our phenomenal lived experience.
Well, let's take visual perception, which yes, relatively uncontroversial. And take the one example that I gave, the rigidity principle. Okay, when you're looking at that sequence of tachistoscopic presentations, you perceive a rigid object in motion. You can't prevent yourself from perceiving that. That's what you perceive, period. What you're actually, the stimuli that are actually reaching your eyes, your retina, are just a series of as few as 3 or 4 presentations on a tachistoscope, screened with lights, of each of which has several dots on it. Well, you have no way of introspecting into that. Your phenomenal experience is a rigid object in motion, but the stimuli that are hitting the retina are a very small number of presentations of a few dots. You can't introspect into that. In fact, that's why it's a discovery. It's kind of like the discovery of the chemical structure of coal or something. You can't introspect into it. So the phenomenal descriptions, they're useful, but they're useful as data. They tell you very little about what's going on. So it's kind of like everything else in the world, where you have data, but it doesn't tell you much about what's going on. That's why you have to take courses in physics and chemistry and so on, because the data isn't transparent. And it's hard for people to deal with. But the same is true of our conscious lives. I mean, we tend to take for granted, kind of like, it's just normal, that we can understand everything about ourselves. In fact, we don't understand anything about ourselves. But that's the crucial step that the human sciences really have not taken yet, for the most part, that was taken in the natural sciences around the 17th century. Just the willingness to be puzzled about things that look obvious. Like, what could be more obvious than if I let go of a cup, it goes down instead of up? Well, Galileo was willing to be puzzled about that. That's why you take physics courses. Before that, all you had to be told is things are going to their natural place. And it's a big psychological step, even in studying the external world, even greater in studying ourselves, because there we sort of feel that we know everything. What's conscious must be what there is. And in philosophy, modern philosophy, it's kind of a principle. It happened to be John Searle, who I was quoting, but it's a widely accepted principle that nothing can be a mental process unless it's accessible to consciousness. And as I mentioned, if you look over the intellectual history, it's very hard to find anyone who departed from this view.